This is the Puck Junk Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. I'm Sal Berry, and with me is Clemente Lisi. And today we're going to talk about the first three games of the 2026 Stanley Cup Final. They have been amazing games. I'm sure those of you who have watched the games will agree. Those of you who haven't had a chance to watch the games, hopefully have read the recaps. I don't think you watched it recorded, but whatever. I'm sure if you're a hockey fan, you are enjoying these games. Is that a bold statement, or is that a what do you think, Clemente? I think that's kind of obvious, right?
I think yes. I think if you're not a hockey fan and you're just dipping in, I think you're having a good time. And I'm glad because this is a showcase event for the sport.
I heard that these finals have had the best ratings since the 2019 finals between St. Louis and Boston. I read that somewhere this morning that the ratings have been good. I mean, of course, they always say, oh, if it's small market teams and North Carolina or North Carolina,
Right.
South Carolina is small market, whatever. But Vegas is not really a small market. I mean, I don't know how big this city is. I know it's not New York, LA, or Chicago. It's further down the list, but it's they're drawing people to see watch the games.
Yeah. No, I mean Vegas. It's not population. It's so much the region, but also it's a big tourist destination. So everyone's heard of Las Vegas all around the world. So that's it. But I think it's getting the attention from just the playoffs have been very competitive up until now, and I think these games have been very close, as we'll talk about, and very tight. And 2 of the 3 went to overtime, and that draws people in, obviously,
Yeah.
and makes people stay with it. Because if you're winning 7-1, you might tune out in the second period, right? So people are either tuning in later or staying for the whole game. And ESPN, ABC is doing a great job. They've also got the NBA Finals. There's a lot of cross promotion. They mentioned, I've been watching the NBA Finals with the Knicks, and they mentioned that the Stanley Cup Finals are happening, and so you have a lot of this cross promotion, and this happens every year. You have the NBA and the NHL Finals around the same time. I just think people are just super turbocharged for both these finals, and thankfully they're close and they've been tight games, and that's what you want. And individually, this performances have been amazing, and then maybe who knows? Maybe there's a little bit of a Olympic spillover. Who knows? It's possible.
So how have you been lately? I know we talked last week, but what's up?
Not too much. Been busy sports wise, obviously. Weather's finally nice here in New York. We're in 80s and 90s. It's finally summer. That's always more enjoyable as well. It puts you in a better mood anyway.
Yeah. So it must have been. I mean, I guess because you're in New York, everyone's probably just been talking about the Knicks nonstop.
It has been, and they have never won it in my lifetime, which is crazy. And so yeah, it has been nonstop, and it's been everywhere you go in the street. There's people with Knicks hats on and T-shirts, and it is a very unifying force. It reminds me of the summer of '94, where you had the Knicks and the Rangers both in the finals that year. And it's fun.
I can't believe that the Knicks, with all those years they had Patrick Ewing, who was just such a great player.
Yeah.
They didn't win the.
Well, I'll tell you. Well, you know why. So you had 2 issues going on. You had the one year they got to the finals in '94 and they almost won, but the Houston Rockets won it. That was the year that Michael Jordan was not in the league. He was playing baseball.
Right.
So the big thing for the Knicks was always getting past the Pacers, and sometimes they would, but then the Bulls were impossible to knock off. And the one season that Jordan wasn't there, they were able to get to the finals, and they didn't win it. But yeah, the Knicks have had an interesting up and down over the decades. But yeah, Michael Jordan kept that '90s team from winning anything.
Well, they had 2 years because also
2,
'95. Jordan
yes.
came back, but he admittedly was not in shape,
Yeah,
not in
sure.
game shape, and so the
Right.
Bulls didn't make it to the finals in '95. So '94, '95 were kind of like the 2 up for grab years. And
Correct. Yeah, but the Knicks never took advantage of that at the time, and then they went through some really down years in the last 15, 20 years. And them getting the finals this year is a bit of a surprise to me. But yeah, having said all that, New York is really in the Knicks spirit. And we've had championship teams, but that mostly come from the Yankees, mostly from baseball. You don't really see it from hockey or from basketball. So it is refreshing to see. And, sports are a unifying force. I mean, New York is a big city. People always seem to be at odds with each other, but when you have a team in the finals, it does bring people together. And there's been all these big watch parties in front of Madison Square Garden. It's been like thousands of people in the street. It's been mostly peaceful, but it's kind of crazy. The weather's hot. It's something to watch, and it's been fun to watch with my family as well. So I've been watching those. I've been busy every night between basically every other night. There's either basketball or hockey, right? So you're watching TV every night, which is nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I watched the NBA finals because they started. Let's see, they've had 2 games so far. So I think we had like a Stanley Cup game on Tuesday, and then we had a NBA game on Wednesday, and then Stanley Cup on Thursday, NBA on Friday,
Yep.
Stanley Cup on Saturday. So it's been nice that they're not conflicting with one another. They're not like at the same time. So
Right.
it's just kind of like every night for like the past 6 months or whatever, or 6 weeks, 5 weeks. I've had hockey on every night. You know what I mean? Every night There's been like a hockey game. Unless there were, then we got to the conference finals, we had like a sweep, and it was just like, okay, so there's no game on tonight. But like, so I'd be like, well, I'd be watching hockey anyways. I'll just put on this basketball game. I sound so flip about it, but I mean, I know who Wembanyama is, or Wemby as everybody calls him, because the way, like when I do card shows, and I have my big sign that says Puck Junk, and I'm wearing a Puck Junk t-shirt, and I got hockey cards as far as the eye can see in my display cases, and people will just come up and scuttle up to my booth and be like, got any Wembies? Got any Wembies? You know what I mean? And like, I'm just like, I mean, I'm polite, but it's like when they come up and like, got any kabooms? And it's like, that's a football card, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And basketball, because Panini makes them. We should point out though that Wembanyama, like this is the first time that the Spurs have been, in the finals with him. But when he came in the league 2 years ago, he was like Bedard, like everyone wanted his rookie cards.
Right,
it was like it was like a big phenomenon. It was in the basketball world, that was like the card everybody wanted. And if you look at grading recently, you look at sales, he commands top dollar, even though looks like the Knicks might win this series. He's can become gradually the face of the NBA, it seems.
Right.
And this could be the beginning of, he may not win the NBA title this year, but he's going to be around for quite a while. He's 7'5", he's a huge guy. He's pretty, likable. He's a Frenchman. He's, I was at Fanatics Fest last year. He was there, and he was very friendly. And it was funny. He was playing basketball with these like kids who were like, I don't know, 6 years old, and they were like shooting. And like, how like you help kids out, you help them win. He was like blocking every shot. It was hilarious. Like, and this video of this like on social where he was just like swatting balls away, and kids are like shooting, and he's like swatting, and it's kind of funny. And I'm like, well, he's 7'5". He would swat the ball away from a 6'8" NBA player,
Right.
So it's quite interesting. So no, he's a good spokesman, I think, for the league, and you can tell who the big names are because we're in the hobby world. We kind of know even from other sports who's up and coming, just because of, like you said, people ask you for his cards, or they ask his demand that shows, his talk of it. And so it is interesting to see him in the finals finally after just a few seasons. But I'm sure this is what, for the NBA, this is what they want. They want a young upcoming star on a small market team. They're playing against New York, which is a huge market, and it's all, the ratings have been very good, and that all works out for them. So yeah, it's been fun being in New York. Like I said, the summer of '94, we had the World Cup coming to the US in '94. You had the Rangers in the finals, and the Rangers won. And then you had the Knicks in the finals, and they lost. But for that period in June, it was pretty crazy and pretty fun. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of that.
Of course, I've been excited about the final because I'm excited about it every year. I mean, I'll tell you, the last time the Hurricanes were in the final, 2006, as anybody who's old enough will remember. But if not, it was 2006. And I remember I was out at like a bar with my friends. We had a bar called Timeout Sports Bar. It was like down the street from where I lived. And I walk in there and like everything is like basketball, baseball, like the TVs, right?
Right.
And it didn't even have that many TVs. It's not like today now. You've probably walked into those bars or restaurants where they just have like they just have like TVs all in a row.
Right.
Like it's because they're so cheap now, right? But
Yes.
you probably remember back then where there'd be like TVs in like three corners, right?
Yeah.
TV, maybe one over the bar, but it wasn't like it wasn't like just ridiculous. So I remember like I said to the bartender, I said, "Hey, can we change the channel? Can you put on the hockey game?" And then my friend, being kind of a jerk, he just kind of leaned in and pointed at me and goes, "He's Canadian." like to justify that. And then
Right.
the person was like, what channel is it on? And then I said, Outdoor Life Network. And they're
boy.
like,
Do we get that?
do we get that? I go, yeah, it's part of basic cable. And they're like, what channel is it? It became like this
Right.
whole thing. Like
Yeah.
first it was like, hockey game. And then it was like Outdoor Life Network. It was just,
Yeah. I mean, the league's come a long way from then. So
yeah, obviously. And especially like in Chicago, it's come a long way because once the Blackhawks won a couple of Stanley Cups, then it was just
Right.
like, oh, hockey. Yeah.
it's a thing again, right? Yeah. Yeah. You need that in certain markets to bring it back to. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but we talk about this
Okay.
when it comes to soccer sometimes, where it's like, well, how come it's not the most popular sport? It is everywhere else. And then I always tell people, look, first of all, it's a foreign game, in a lot of ways can't, hockey is Canadian, right, by birth. But on top of that, we have the best baseball league in the world, the best basketball league in the world. We have football, which nobody else plays but us. We have the best league in the world for that. We have probably the NHL is the best hockey league in the world. You have all these college sports. I mean, we have so many choices
Yeah.
that I can see why each sport elbows each other, and it's very seasonal that way. Other countries you go to, there's like one sport, maybe two, and those leagues aren't the best in the world in anything. So we were spoiled in America in terms of. But when you mentioned this hockey thing 20 years ago and asking to put on that OLN, it reminds me sometimes when I go to a bar and like we ask people to put on a soccer game, they're like, "Okay, what channel is this thing on?" It's not usually not that obscure as OLN. Nothing was obscure like OLN. In terms of one day there'll be a book written about like obscure, cable networks, and that would definitely be a chapter. But it feels the same way. And then like whenever we've gone to like the expo in Canada, it feels very refreshing to be like, oh, hockey's everywhere, and it's a normal part of culture, and I don't feel like a weirdo here. So.
Well, let's talk the Stanley Cup Final then,
Yeah.
shall we?
Yep. Let's do it.
So yeah, exciting. A lot of history. Those NHL commercials. They'll always say history will be made, but there was some history that was made. Definitely in Game 3, but also in Games 1 and 2. So just to give a little bit of a recap, I know most of you probably watch these games anyway, but so Game 1, you'll remember right off the bat, boom, Nikolai Ehlers of the Hurricanes scores 25 seconds into the game, which was like, okay, wow, Carolina's not effing around. They come right out, all guns blazing. They're the home team. They're the best team in the Eastern Conference. They come out, they score a goal right away. And then Ehlers scores again, I think like 12 minutes later. Okay. And then Vegas score a goal, tie it, and then it's kind of back and forth. So it was exciting. It was a back and forth kind of game. It was exciting. Tomas Hertl scores the game-winning goal within the last 5 minutes of the game. So it wasn't like a last-minute goal, but it was in that last 5 minutes. And then, Carolina couldn't tie. Vegas pulls off, if you want to call it an upset. I mean, these teams are both great, but yeah, the road team won. I mean, what did you think of that? I mean, I after that first game, I was just like, okay, wow, this was good. It was back and forth. You had an upset. If you had a goal right off the bat, you had a quote unquote upset or whatever, the road team winning Game 1, which is kind of an upset, I think.
Game 1. So I tuned to that game a little later that night because I was actually recording with Drew Pelto, TTM Cast. So for anybody who listens to TTM Cast, I was recording that week's episode. And in the middle of the episode, he's like, "Do you want an update on the hockey game?" I'm like, "Sure." I think his wife handed him like a piece of paper, like you would like see like on television. He handed him like a piece of paper, and it says, the Hurricanes have scored 25 seconds into the game. And I'm like, wow, they're not messing around. Like this is going to be. This shows the urgency of which these teams are approaching the game and the final, and I thought that would be that's a really good start to the series, and I think it was, and then they climb back, and then you mentioned game 2. It's always good to snatch a game on the road, and I think it was Tim who said that 3 of these games will go to overtime. Well, he's close. I mean, so far, 2 of them, and we've got more to go. Could it go 6 games? Could it go 7? Could there be 3-4 games in overtime? I mean, yes. So this is like everything we wanted. If you can cook up a fun Stanley Cup final in a lab, so far the first 3 games have done that, and that's really great. I think for the what I call neutrals. I mean, I consider myself a neutral. I don't necessarily have a rooting interest here. I do just want to see a good series. There's players I like on both sides, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So then game 2, Brett Howden, who leads the playoffs in goals, scores 2 goals in game 2, scores 1 in the first period, scores 1 in the second period. And the Hurricanes are down 3-0, or I should say Vegas is up 3-0. But then in like not in the last 10 minutes, maybe the last 15 minutes of the third period, they start a comeback, and it's just like they get a goal, they get another goal, and they're like, okay, this is interesting now, right? And then Carolina, they tie, and then there was that goal that the Knights scored that was waved off, and John Tortorella, their head coach, he challenged the goal, and even in the post-game conference, he said, I would have challenged that goal 10 times out of 10. I think is what he said, or maybe he said, I think he said 10 times out of 10. But it was ruled goaltender interference. So Hurricanes get a power play, and Jordan Stahl gets he scores. But then the game ends up going to overtime because Mark Stone ties it, and then Seth Jarvis gets the game winner in overtime. And so, so that game, I was kind of like, wow, okay, so Vegas wins game 1. Then Carolina looks pretty unimpressive in game 2. And then it was like in that third period, though, they turn it around. They look good. They forced overtime. Well, they tied it. Vegas ends up, they tie it. They go ahead. Vegas ends up forcing overtime. But then Carolina wins in overtime. And so this was the first time in 108 years that the NHL has been around. First time that teams have, this is the wording from the NHL. I know this is a mouthful, but the first time that teams have swapped multi-goal comeback wins in the first 2 games of the Stanley Cup Finals. In other words, this team comes from behind a couple of goals and wins. And in game 2, this other team comes from a couple goals from behind.
In reverse. And,
Yes. So that's exciting. So, I mean, now you go, okay, game 1 was both teams look good game 1. Game 2, Vegas looked good for 2 periods, and then Carolina looked good in the third period, and then they won the overtime. So, so I don't know. I mean, am I rooting for a team? Kind of want to see Carolina win. I mean, my friend Jim Howard, who used to be Jim, not the goalie Howard, as we call him, because not to be confused with the former Red Wings goalie, but Jim Howard, who has in the past been a host of this podcast, and also he has contributed many articles for puckjunk.com. He's a Canes fan. He used to be a season ticket holder, so I'd be happy for him if Carolina won. I went to a couple of Canes games a couple of years ago. He took me, and just an incredible fan base. I mean, Vegas obviously also has an incredible fan base. We see them when they show those games, and you see how just into it the Vegas crowd is. But, I'd be happy for Taylor Hall to win a Stanley Cup. There's probably a lot of guys on both teams that I'd be happy for. But then I look and I go, Vegas won it a couple years ago. I don't know. So
Well, yeah, and look, but ideally, if you don't have a rooting interest like me, ideally, when you go first two games and it goes 1-1, that's a good sign. Because if a team goes
yes,
up two games, then it starts to pull away a bit, and that's very different. So I was happy. I'm kind of rooting for a team when, like, if they're down in the series to come back, because I do want to go to 7. So
I don't want to see either team get stomped in 4 games or 5, or that like 5 games where they win the third game in overtime, but
yeah,
they lose 1, 2, 4,
right,
and 5. Like
and
I
right,
just I don't want to see that. That's
yeah.
always sad.
I mean, nothing worse than a sweep is 4-1 because one is feeble. It's like, oh, they won the game in the middle, and anybody can lose one game, right? So
I
yeah,
mean, think about like when the Sharks lost to the Penguins 10 years ago, right?
right,
They
right,
got like one.
yeah,
I think they won 1 game,
right.
and it was just like,
It's lame-o, but
yeah,
yeah,
it was just like, okay, like,
it's a false
yeah,
hope.
it's a false hope because I mean, I want to say it was like game 3 that they won, but they were
Right,
already
right.
down like 2-0. So it's just
Yeah,
like,
it keeps you.
yeah,
It's like you're barely alive and you're still trying to survive, but
right.
as I say, the writing's on the wall. So
Yeah, and I know that was like 10 years ago, but then if you look back 20 years ago, you had the Avalanche swept the Panthers. So I mean, yeah, I mean it's just, yeah, was that, no, that was 20, no, that was 30 years ago. 20 years ago was Carolina going to 7 games against Edmonton. 30 years was, oh my god, yeah,
I mean,
30 years.
I referenced the Rangers '94 win. That went to 7 games against the Canucks. That was an amazing series,
It
and
was, but I don't know, like
the Rangers seem predestined there, but yeah,
they did, and I'm actually surprised. I was surprised then that it went 7 games because I
they
thought
should
the
have done it
rate.
at 6. They should have done it at 6, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean the thing is that goaltending. I like Kirk McLean, but goaltending, I thought Richter was a better goaltender, and the Rangers had just a lot of better players. Like the Canucks, they had Trevor Linden, and they had Pavel Bure, and I'm sure they
yeah,
had a couple other great players, but those are the two that just stand out in my mind. But then if you look at the Rangers, yeah, they had a lot of old Oilers, but they
yeah,
had a lot of good players. I mean,
they did.
yeah,
They did. Yeah, no, yeah, but I'm just saying, you remember the series that go to 7 because of how memorable they are. You also remember the sweeps because it was disappointing.
yeah,
I mean, the Oilers went to a 7 game, was it 2 years ago? Right? And
yeah.
that was exciting, and they didn't do it, and McDavid won MVP, even though he was on the losing side. And, so that you remember stuff like that, as well. So,
I wonder if McDavid has his Conn Smythe trophy on display next to his silver medal.
ugh, oh my god. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride.
Oh my god, I know that was mean. I'm gonna go to hockey
Also,
hell
he
for
was
that.
MVP of the Olympics
That's
in a
right.
losing effort. So
Oh
this
my
is like
god.
his thing.
He's gotta be, maybe.
There's players who win individual awards but can never win the team trophy, the one that really matters. Like in this case, the Stanley Cup or the gold medal or whatever it is. I mean, he has the 4. They won the 4 nations for whatever that's worth. It's not going to cement your legacy anywhere, but he's already got a great legacy. I just want to see him win a Stanley Cup, just like I want to see a couple of these guys win a Stanley Cup on both sides. I mean, like Mitch Marner were to win a Stanley Cup, that would be pretty cool.
That would be great. I'm happy for Marner. I'm happy for Marner.
Which is by the way, it's a great segue to Game 3.
Yeah, it is. So I mean, so game 3. So we had another overtime. This one went to double overtime, right? So we had 2 goals. Vegas scores 2 goals that get waved off. They score a goal, it gets waved off. Score another goal, it gets waved off. One was like offside. The other one's goalie interference. Okay, fine.
Very
Whatever.
frustrating, but I think they were good calls, but it's very frustrating when goals get waved off because it kind of breaks the team's mojo. But
Yeah, and then it's like 2 in a row. I thought Tortorella was going to start throwing things on. I thought he was going to start throwing sticks on the ice, but
yeah, he was a pull. Yeah,
he kept it cool. But then Vegas has a 4-goal explosion. First goal assisted by Marner, but then Marner scores the next 3 goals, and now he has the fastest hat trick in Stanley Cup Final history, and this record has been around since 1957 when Maurice Richard, the Rocket Richard, scored 3 goals in 6 minutes and 29 seconds. Mitch Marner does it in 6 minutes, 10 seconds. Well, a hat trick's a hat trick, but still,
Yeah.
I mean, to say like, hey, okay, you think of like Rocket Richard is like one of the all-time greats. Maybe Mitch Marner will go down as one of the all-time greats. Who knows? You know, he was.
I wanna segue here to
Yeah.
point out that Mitch Marner's Young Guns card, for example, 30 days ago was selling for about $185,
Yep.
maybe 200 if great. This is graded. And now within 30 days, it's up 60%. It's up to 100, it's up $120. It's selling for about $320. So we talk about the playoff bump. Someone like
Mm-hmm.
Marner obviously is going to get a bump. He's scoring a ton of goals. He probably deserves to have been worth more than that anyway. But I can see how he's getting the bump now. We've talked about how this bump usually subsides by the time you get to August or September. But having said
Right.
that, if you have his card, Young Guns card now, and you're not looking to hang on to it, now is the time to sell. If you're looking to buy, I would totally wait until October, November when things probably cool off massively and you can go back to buying him for 185 and not spend 320. It's a lot. It's a big difference.
Right.
And I know we talked about in the past, we talked about Brett Howden. Now his cards are still not worth that much money because he's starting off at such a low point. Like I looked up to see how much his PSA 10 cards were selling for,
Mm-hmm.
and there just aren't that many PSA cards of him at all. So because people didn't get him graded, so I found that there is in the last month only one sale of a PSA 10, and that was on eBay. It was for $199.
Hmm.
And if you try to buy it raw, this card is still going for like $10. So this
Wow.
is and I have this card because he's pictured as a New York Ranger. But it's just that, yeah. So some players, they're starting off at a very low point, don't go up all that much because how much of a percentage can you go up, right? And um, so I don't. His card is very, very widely available, and if you need to finish your collection, you can go ahead and pick him up. He's not in the dollar box anymore, where he would have been probably a month ago.
Right.
You know, now he's a little bit more than that. But it's interesting how the playoffs does cause this sort of these bumps. They're temporary, but I do think if Marner were to win the Conn Smythe, wins the Stanley Cup, he may go up in price and maybe stay there and maybe go up and plateau a little bit, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of go to a different level. And you want to see that because I want to see more cards of more players in demand. I hate to see the same 4 or 5 people. This reminds me a little bit of Cale Makar a couple of years back with the Avalanche. Like his cards went up and then
Yep.
and then I don't know where they are now, but no one's asking for him anymore. And you're a dealer. You see at shows, you know what people are asking. Be curious to see if any of the Stanley Cup spills over into the National, for example, um, and what that looks like. I just don't know that the National attracts a lot of collectors from either Vegas or Carolinas, right? I never met anybody from those states at the National before, but maybe the local card shows like the Vegas card show and whatever shows are happening in the Carolinas, maybe you see more demand there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, no, I think usually who wins the MVP trophy, people are looking for his cards.
Just like the Rookie of the Year, the cards go from speculation to like, oh, okay, like Matthew Schaefer, it's like, okay, now it's $200.
Right. Yeah. Well, but what I'm saying is that like, yeah, Rookie of the Year and Conn
moves the
Smythe
needle.
Trophy winners.
They move the
yeah,
needle. They move the needle. Yeah.
those will move the needle, and then of course, like good cards of great players, people will buy. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
it's but like a Brett Howden, that would be like, I guess the thing. Okay, so if Sidney Crosby, I know he's not in the finals, but I'm just saying if Sidney Crosby were to win the Conn Smythe Trophy this year, people would want his cards because he won the Conn Smythe Trophy and because he's a great player.
And they always want his cards, right?
So. Yeah, but then again, like if you have something interesting, because like I had a really nice Jonathan Marchessault card that I picked up at the Expo, and it was not a rookie card, but it was like a cup card. It was signed on card, and it had a nice 3-color patch piece, probably from the Knights logo. And I said, dang, that is a nice card.
Right.
And I bought it, and I was going to put it in my display case just because it was such an appealing card.
Right.
And I never got around to putting it in my case. And then after he won the Conn Smythe Trophy, I looked at it. I said, well, I haven't put it on display. I've had this card for maybe a year, maybe 2 years, whatever. So I sold it at the National. Some guy looked at it, goes, oh my God, what a great card. And he won the Conn Smythe Trophy, and he just bought it without a second thought.
And that's the other thing we should look at. We always talk about young guns, but I think if you have a card from year 5 or year 3 or year 10, and it is an autograph, something really beautiful, a nice patch.
Right.
Now we're talking about something a little different. And I think those cards do well. It's hard to gauge them because there's so many of those cards from so many different sets spread out over time. Players like Gretzky, Lemieux, Crosby, they all have those cards because they've been around so long. They played for so many years. They showed up in sets later on, that there is a variety of cards like that are like, oh, it's a cool patch. It's from a year they won the cup, or maybe, from another year, but he's pictured, wearing the, in this case, the Penguins uniform or whatever it is. And I think that will stand out in the display. It's the only thing that bucks the whole trend of the rookie card is, oh yeah, it's year 10, but it's an amazing card. It's got this great logo patch and everything, and it's an amazing autograph. And I do think that those cards, you could gobble those up because you can just look for those cards. You can on eBay, you can speculate on those cards. You can definitely buy them. And I mean, look at Gretzky. It doesn't matter if it's a patch and auto or just an auto. It doesn't matter what year. It could have been produced after he retired, and most of them are. It doesn't matter. They're all worth money. A couple of years ago, I was looking for a Gretzky card. I never bought it. But I'm always in the market for like a Gretzky card if he's wearing a Canada jersey with a red patch. That's like different, I don't care what year it's from, because clearly it's not from when he was playing, because they weren't making those cards when he was playing. They're all post-career. But it's just like something that you say, you know what, I want this in my collection because it just looks so cool because he's wearing his national team uniform. It's different, blah, blah, blah. So I do think people do chase that stuff. And I do think that at the National, if you're a collector, you're looking for and those are the kind of cards, by the way, that you can never have on your want list because you don't even know it exists. Right. It's the kind of thing you walk up to your booth, for example, and you look and you're like, oh, wow. This Mitch Marner year 5 card where he's doing something really cool, and it's a patch. It's like, that's cool, so that is cool. You see that at the Expo because they have so much inventory at the Expo.
Right.
You see more stuff at the National. You have to get lucky.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta be looking for it. Yeah, especially if you're looking for hockey, because it's gonna be 10% of the show. Right. Maybe a little more, but
not 80%. Like at the
Expo. No, and now that you have Pokemon being such a, I said that like, Pokemon, like I said that with a little bit of like that, like Severus Snape Potter, right? Like that just that little bit of like angst, right? Like, like Pokemon cards now are like, Pokemon's the 4th sport. I hate to say it, but
oh yeah,
I see those commercials for what is that garbage called?
Look at the grading numbers. I mean,
no. Those slab packs that they sell, Arena Club.
Oh, sure.
And it's like, oh yeah, and you can get baseball, basketball, football, and Pokemon. And I'm like, oh, so Pokemon's the 4th sport now, right? So, but like, yeah, so you got to dig.
You got to dig. But I'm saying this is the kind of stuff that hockey collectors are looking for. Not the ones that are fly by night. Like, I'm just looking for a Bedard rookie. I'm just looking for, blah, 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 young guns. It's people.
Yeah, they want the Mitch Marner young gun because he won the Conn Smythe Trophy.
Maybe that's what they're looking for.
That's what they're looking for. But a collector will just want something cool.
Yes, and doesn't matter. And look, Mitch Marner played, in top markets before, and so there are people that collect him, I'm sure, as a player collector. And, a player like Mitch Marner, like, he's finally coming due. Like, he's been in the league a while, and he's on the right team with the right players, and it's clicking. And look, even if they don't win the finals, I mean, I do think he put himself in an upper category at least this year, this season, and it's been fun to watch. I mean, scoring a hat trick in game 3 is bonkers. And and this game could be decisive for the if the next game, if game 4, the Golden
Right.
Knights win it, then this game is what did it. If Carolina ties it, then we're back to square one and we're basically back to 0.
Yeah.
So this is the next game is going to be key because the series can totally break for Vegas.
Well, let me just to finish recapping this
Yeah.
game, and that was quite a tangent with all the card stuff, but that's okay. We didn't really have a card topic for this show. Actually, it was kind of funny that we're recording this on Sunday night. There's no NBA game. There's no NHL game. It just
That's why we're
seems weird.
recording. That's why we're recording.
Because and then we can put this up. I could put this up hopefully Monday morning. That's my goal. So people could listen to this Monday, Tuesday, because then the finals will have game 4 Tuesday. So that's the goal. But you had okay, so Hurricanes are getting clobbered. It's 4-0. Coach Rod Brindamore puts Brandon Bussey out in net to replace Frederick Anderson in the 3rd period. Bussey stops 19 shots because he also plays in the overtime. Hurricanes overcome that 4-goal deficit, which is also bonkers, right? Bonkers that Marner gets a hat trick, a natural hat trick, 3 goals in a row, uninterrupted, fastest hat trick, natural hat trick, awesome, right? Then Hurricanes come back, they tie it, and unfortunately, well, for the Hurricanes, they lose in second overtime. Shea Theodore scores the game winner in second overtime. And by the way, in addition to talk about a crazy game, we had 2 goals by Vegas that were waved off. And then we had 2 goals by Vegas that were own goals by Carolina. One where Marner shot the puck and it bounced off the defenseman's stick. And then the same thing happened in second overtime when Shea Theodore shot the puck and it bounced off the defenseman's stick. And just like, wow, 2 waved off goals, 2 own goals, and the fastest hat trick in Stanley Cup Final.
Well, in the final preview we said it's going to be the Vegas offense versus Carolina's defense. And you can tell in this game might be a microcosm. Like I said, if Vegas wins the whole thing, this game is the pivotal game. You're seeing everything that Vegas is doing offensively to score goals, even if it means getting the bounce of the puck right or getting a little lucky. Like they're just peppering the goal and getting shots from all over the place. And in this case, even the defense couldn't stop them. Like when it hits your stick and goes and fools your goalie and goes in, that's like the worst thing that can happen. But that's also just a little bit of luck. And also you make your luck because you just gotta shoot from any angle in that sense.
Yeah.
And because you never know what can go in, what can bounce. And in this case, it bounced their way. Now you don't get lucky in every game like this. So, it's a matter of skill over time, but it is curious to see how the Hurricanes are handling the more shots. And this game is a sign that they did not handle that well, right? They had to pull their goalie. They had to come back then, and then they give up 2 goals. And I mean, you rarely see, and own goal is a kind of interesting term because in soccer, they use the same term, own goal. And they're pretty rare in soccer. Like they're pretty rare in hockey. It has 2 in one game. I don't remember seeing 2 in one game before. And maybe I have, but it just, especially such a decisive game, that just tells me that Vegas is doing everything it can offensively to put that puck in the net, and it's working.
Yeah, no, it's and that's the thing. Like you can't win a championship on lucky bounces alone. Like you have to have all the things going for you. And actually, looking at just look at some of the scoring leaders. Now this is in the finals. Like I know that these players have more goals than what we're showing here, but just as far as for the first
3 games.
3 games of the Stanley Cup Finals, Brett Howden with 3 goals, Mitch Marner with 3 goals, Mark Stahl with 3 goals. And Stahl surprises me a little bit because he's 37. He's getting up there, but he's gotten a goalie. No, I mean, still way younger than me, but like the thing is that like when you see a guy like that who scores 1 goal a game, he's being very consistent. He's doing everything a team captain should. So he's got 3 goals in 3 final games. Tomas Hertl has 2 goals. Nikolai Ehlers 2 goals. Shea Theodore 2 goals, and then the rest of the goals in the series have been scored by 10 other players. So there have been 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 16 different players scoring goals. So it's not just like one player for one team and one. I know it's never just one player versus
or
another
two,
player.
but it's spread out, is what you're saying.
Yeah. But when you look at like I know I said this a couple weeks ago, but like how Connor McDavid dragged the Oilers to the Stanley Cup Finals, right? And it was just kind of like it's like you need your best guy to score, but then you also need your other guys to score, and that's what's going on. It's not just like Mitch Marner versus I don't know, Nikolai Ehlers, right? Or Andrei Svechnikov, who he's got a goal, but he's been kind of a little quiet, right? Or Sebastian Aho also, you kind of expect those guys to do a little more. But yeah, so that's the thing. It's been balanced. It's not just the star players are scoring and nobody else. And it's not just your grinders who are scoring, because you're not going to win if your grinders and your third liners are doing all your scoring, but you still need them to contribute.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. And you want a team effort because, like you mentioned, McDavid, it's a great analogy in the sense that if one guy is scoring all your goals, that means he's playing too many minutes. That's not good over time. They get tired, and this is a slog. So you want that. But you mentioned a couple of players, like Sebastian Aho has been very quiet in this whole playoffs in general,
Mm-hmm.
and in this series, he's been almost non-existent, I think, in the sense that he's not putting up goals. He needs a game where he scores a goal or two just to really, put his mark on it. Because if the Hurricanes were to win this thing and Sebastian Aho doesn't score more than 2 or 3 goals, let's say in the final, that would say something about their depth.
Right.
Both these teams where like you get the, I think in the media, they love the narrative of like Carolina versus Vegas. It's going to be, Mitch Marner versus Sebastian Aho, like the big names, because everyone wants that subplot. They're looking for like that storylines. I mean, we're journalists. We're always looking for stories and looking for, subplots, as we call them. And sometimes they're just not there. Sometimes,
right.
Or it's not like Brett Howden is a story because no one expected him to be kind of a breakout star, and he has been, and that's more refreshing than like. But there's also a story when guys are not scoring or they're not doing something. And of course, they're lending other kind of support. Maybe they have, we don't have the assist leaders here, and those matter too, obviously.
Of course,
And
yeah.
So it just, you forget that we love to push up the big stars, whether we talk about the hobby or just a sport in general. The truth is, these are team sports, and they will always be team sports, and you need a team effort. And I guess we can segue to the goalies, right? I mean, you need multiple players scoring goals, and both these teams are getting that, which is good. That's why it's so tight. Every game has been decided by 1 goal. The goaltending, I will say, if I have to pick one of these goalies to be my goalie, Carter Hart would be my guy, because I think, I'm not saying he's Conn Smythe material, but if these games stay tight and he gives up fewer goals as we go forward, it might be an interesting conversation. He's had a very good playoffs. I think we're underestimating that, but he's had a very good playoffs.
Yeah, he has had a very good playoffs. And Anderson also, up until this point, had a very good playoffs. And now he doesn't seem.
Well, he got lit up. I mean,
he
that's
got
the problem.
lit up, and like there's goals where he's just down and out. He's flat on his stomach, and he just roof the puck. You know what I mean? Like I get it. You make the save. You can't necessarily make the second save when you're in a prone position. But I'm saying though, like Hart has looked better. He's faced more shots.
Correct.
And
better save percentage. Better save percentage for
better save percentage. Yeah, but I think. Oh, and I just want to backtrack for just a minute because you said something about everybody on the team, contributing.
Yeah.
And I remember in game 3, after Marner gets his hat trick, they interviewed him during intermission. And PK Subban said, "Is there anything you can't do?" And I'm just like, wow, that's a really tough question.
It
Like,
is.
I get that you're like giving him a pat on the shoulder and saying, "Attaboy." Like, if he just said, "Wow, there's nothing you can't do," and then asked a question, that would have been fine. But he said, "Is there anything you can't do?" And I'm thinking, well, that's a really shitty question. And I love PK Subban, but I'm like thinking, that's a really shitty question, right? And then Martyr says, "Well, I can't do it alone." And I just said, make that man president, because that is just
great answer.
that was the best answer that I've heard to, again, I love PK Subban, but that was just not a dumb question. It just was would you say it's not a loaded question? It was almost like a rhetorical question, but he waited for an answer. So that it put the pressure on him. Like,
it's interesting because it's a question that's got a compliment in it, but it also, you learn a lot about the player from the answer. And he could have been,
but that wasn't the intention. I don't think that was the intention.
I don't think so either. I think it was more like "You're amazing. I can't believe what you're doing." But the answer he gave was both humble and the truth. I mean, you can't do it alone. And we talked about this being a team sport. You cannot do it alone. That's an answer like Gretzky would have probably given.
Yeah, I was going to say that sounds like straight out of the Wayne Gretzky book of
team leadership.
Team leadership, yeah, you're so right about that. But yeah, so that's just something I remembered. I'm just like, wow, that was a great, because I'm thinking compliment your goalie. You could have said, well, I can't
That's what
play
I
goalie,
thought.
and
I can't play goalie.
That we have Carter and net, bailing us out. And that's what I thought, right? That would have been like
the answer he gave was even better. He didn't even name anybody. It's a whole team, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So, I thought it was interesting that Bussy got put in the third period for Carolina. But that could be because Anderson's checked out at that point. He let in 4 goals. Sometimes it's to send a message to the team. Basically, you're saying, hey, I can't replace all 18 of you, but I can replace the goalie, but I should really be replacing all 18 of you. So sometimes it's like the wake-up call for the team.
Well, it almost worked.
They came back. Would have been crazy. Now, imagine if they came back. Now, Bussy, unfortunately, gets the loss because he allowed the game-winning goal in overtime. But he played a heck of a game. So a couple of things, like we got game 4 coming up on Tuesday. Who is Rod Brind'Amour going to start? And you don't have to answer that because that's a tough question. But
I think you go with, I'll answer it because that's what we're here for, right? I go with the guy that got you there. You go with Anderson because I think if you don't put Anderson in net, now you're really sending a message to the player, the goalie, and the team that you don't need to send because it's not in the midst of this game. It's now we're basically had a couple of days rest. This is a brand new game.
Mm-hmm.
Why get in the goalie's head that way? And then because if you're doing that, that means he's not playing ever again for the series, and you don't want to do that because any goalie can get a bad night. Carter Hart could have a bad night. In the next game, and what does that mean? It means nothing. It means he had a bad night. So, that's what I would do. Now, since you mentioned that question, I will be very curious to see as soon as the game were to start, like who's starting, and that's a question they're going to ask the coach in the press conference the day before the game. Obviously, I would ask that question, like who you going with in goal, and that's the coach's chance to say no, we're going to go with Anderson. He's been solid for us all year, and he got us this far. We're going to stick with him. Unless he says something different, that's going to be that's. By the way, that's the subplot that us journalists are always looking for. Like, is that going to be that's going to be the headline, right? Like one way or the other. This is the pivotal question fans are asking before the game.
Yeah, I think that if he starts Bussy in game 4. You're basically saying you lost confidence in Anderson. And I don't think he has, because I don't think Anderson, he got lit up, but I don't think the problems with games 2 and games 3 was so much a goaltending problem. The thing is that when the other team, Vegas is up by a goal, well, they're going to keep trying to score. Then they're up by 2 goals. Well, they're going to keep trying to score, and it's like, okay, you better effing score if you're the team that's down 2-0 or 3-0, because the other team is not going to just lean back and stop. And then they can even take more risks, because guess what? If you're up 3-0, okay, let's take a risk and try to make it 4-0, right? It's not
Right.
like a 0-0 where like, oh, we don't want to make a mistake. We don't want to make a mistake, right? Like,
Sure,
but
sure.
when you're up by 2 or 3 goals and you have that cushion, then it's easier to break it open, because it's just like, all right, well, if we make a mistake and we let in a goal, well, who cares? We're up 4-1, right?
And
So
yeah. No, what I want to add to that is that if you don't go with Anderson, it shows that internally there's some turmoil. And look, I would bench Anderson if they were down 3-1. It's like, you know what? We're on the brink of losing this finals. I'm going to go with another guy. Like, sorry, Anderson, we're never going to see you again. But that you can do that, because if you were to lose the next game, you can say, look, we were down 3-1. We had our backs to the wall. What could we do? But this series is all to play for. So you don't
2-1,
want to
yeah.
do that. Yeah. Now, I'd be curious to see if he gets lit up again. Well, that's a different story now. Now we got 2 games in a row, and you're down,
Then you're down 3-1,
and
you're
now
going into
now you're in
game
the
5,
situation you're in the situation I just mentioned. Your back is on the wall. Look, Carolina has to win this game, otherwise this series I think could be over. And
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah, well, I think we all said Vegas in 6, so that would
Yeah.
be, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, what if Carolina ended up winning game 3 and with Bussy in net in overtime?
Interesting.
Would you say, well, let's keep the same lineup, or would you just say, yeah, Freddie had a bad night, or the team had a bad night in front of him and it wasn't really the goalie's fault?
That one's a much tougher question to answer, I will admit, because
Yeah, I know, right?
yeah, that one's tougher. In the winning scenario, it's like, it's like, but you know what? If you go with Anderson, even in that situation, Bussy doesn't feel like he's been punished, because he's like, well, I'm basically mostly the backup, and so I'm here to help.
Right.
And yeah, so I'm here to do my job. My job is to come in. And look, it's like baseball. If your starting pitcher has 2 bad innings, inning 1 and 2, and you have to pull them early, you put in that middle reliever. The goal of the middle reliever, and then later the closer potentially, like those jobs, those pitchers, is to basically make up for the fact that your starter couldn't hack it that night. And look, we've had great baseball pitchers who won World Series and all that, and everyone can have a bad night where basically you give 3 home runs in the first inning and you're like, they're gonna pull me, and it just means a bad night. So look, he had a bad night, Anderson. That's just what it is. And so if the Hurricanes had won that game, I still would go with Anderson, because I'd say, look, it's not personal. You're basically the backup. Anderson's my starter. I'm going with him. Unless you see something that looks very weird, like he's injured. Something, you talk to the player one-on-one, and he's telling you, I'm not right in the head, something's up. Okay, but we don't know any of that. We don't think any of that is happening here. We just think he had a bad night, which I think is what it is. In that case, I'd still go with Anderson. But these are the tough decisions that I think most fans don't think about when they think about coaches. And a lot of times when you have great players, I've heard people say, you don't even need a coach. These guys can play by themselves. No, they can't. No, they can't. You need a coach and a staff to manage these personalities, these egos, these people have private lives. And then look, these guys are young, 20s, 30 years old. They're young people. The
Right.
coaches tend to be older. You need, look, we both teach, we both have been mentors. You need someone to sort of lead a discussion, and someone to be in charge, and to bring some order and semblance. And otherwise, it's just a mess. I mean, we've all played rec sports, and those are fun because the stakes are low. But I wouldn't say there's some great coaching going on when you're playing like rec soccer or rec hockey.
Right.
You're just kind of going out there and giving it your all, and then whatever happens, and you go home. And the goal is to have a good night, have fun. this is not, they want to have fun, but they want to win. This is high stakes. So I think that's what it boils down to. But these are all really interesting questions. I'm looking forward to watching some of the 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 press conferences that happen days leading up to the game, and then obviously the game day itself. You're gonna hear a lot of speculation about all this, but but like I mentioned, this is pivotal. I think we get to a juncture of the series that it really matters now. And look, Anderson's a professional, and look, the defense in front of him also matters. I mean,
Well,
like we're
yeah. And actually, let me interject
yeah,
because since you brought up Anderson again, and now that you're talking about this, and I was rethinking about those goals in Game 3,
yeah,
and first goal Anderson gave up was the Kane for shorthanded. And that was the one where Tomas Hertl was left alone in front of the net.
yeah,
And Marner passed it to him, and he just had one timed it in. I mean, it was just he had time, he had room, he was in the slot. I mean, it was just
yeah,
it was
perfect.
perfect, right? So
Perfect.
that's a defensive breakdown. That's not on the goalie, right?
That one,
Second goal was
that one you don't count. I mean, yeah, it
right,
counts,
but
but
then
you
the
don't
next
count
one
it
was
against.
the own goal that bounced off the defender's stick.
That's bad
It
luck.
was, yeah, Marner just flung it on his backhand, and if the defender didn't extend his stick, it would have just gone by. But
Yeah,
because he put his stick out, he deflected
the
it past.
trajectory changed. Yeah,
Right. So can't fault the goalie for that either.
not
Okay.
really.
And then Marner got that breakaway.
A breakaway is a breakaway. The defense, were
Breakaway
they?
with one of the best players in the league. I mean, okay. So I guess what I'm saying is that these weren't all necessarily bad
Blunders.
goals
Yeah.
on the goalie's fault. Or these weren't bad goals on the goalie and the goalie's fault. So
Right.
yeah, I the more I think about it, yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not trying to be a contrarian, because I think both Anderson and Bussy had good regular seasons, but then it's almost like when Anderson when he got into playoffs, he raised his game, but also Carolina was limiting how many, doing a good job at shutting down the other teams. And then, of course, it was Ottawa. So, I mean, Ottawa is Ottawa. And
Yeah.
the Flyers were just happy to be there and happy to beat
Right.
the Penguins, So,
Yeah, look, this is the first really meaty matchup for them. And look, it's close. So they're toe to toe with them. So it's nothing, if you're Carolina, you're not, I wouldn't be worried. I'd be like, look, guys, we're pretty much even with these guys. I mean, we've these games have all been decided by one goal. Two of them have gone to overtime. Like, we just got to grab one. That's all.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I mean, we said that we wanted an exciting final, and so far 3 games in, it's been an exciting final. Like you said, it's been 3 games decided by 1 goal. We've had an overtime. We've had a double overtime. Heck, I even forgot to mention there was a penalty shot, which that was against Brandon Bussy, and he stopped it. It was Mitch Marner. I mean, that could have been his 4th goal of the game, and Bussy stopped that one. So, in the series, we've had an unsuccessful coach's challenge. We've had a stopped penalty shot. We've had the fastest hat trick in Stanley Cup Final history. We've had that record of Game 1 and Game 2 where each team overcame deficits, multi-goal deficits to win. We've had, Jordan Stahl getting a goal a game in the finals. We've had, a goal 25 seconds into a game. I mean, we've had like all the things, like all the makings of like an exciting final. I mean, I will say that I think that like, I guess the Hurricanes kind of not being so good in Game 2 was probably the only down point. I was just like, this is kind of boring, right? Like, they don't do anything until the last 10 minutes of the third period. Then it's like, oh my God, we have a game. This is great. Yeah. Like, it went from me being like, well, this series is over.
Right.
To, oh my God, they made a comeback. Oh my God, they won an overtime. Right. So it just, and there's a lot of things that could be turning points in the series. So it maybe not in Game 2, because since we've had Game 3, but like when I looked at like, Vegas overcoming a deficit and winning in Game 1, and then not letting Carolina score any goals in most of game 2. I'm like, okay, well, that was the turning point, right? Like Carolina came out, they fought hard, but then Vegas figured it out, turned it around, came back, and I thought, okay, that's the turning point. That's it. This is going to be a 4-game series. And then game 2, it's just like, oh, Carolina makes this big comeback and that coach's challenge, and maybe that's the turning point. But
well, I mentioned that game 3 could be a turning point should ultimately Vegas prevail 4-1, and then that one game that Carolina won in overtime is the fluke, the one outlier that because Vegas had one bad period and they lost in overtime. If Carolina wins the next game, it's 2-2. No, none of that matters, and all this excitement that we're talking about, none of it will matter because we're going to have new chapters in this series. Because then it might go to 6, it might go to 7, and it's going to become a thing. So yeah, as a neutral, like I mentioned, I'm pretty neutral. I want Carolina to win the next one and keep it going. And look, I read something super interesting. This goes for the NBA, but also the NHL. The networks need these series to go 6 or 7 games because it becomes more lucrative that way. If it's a sweep, they're barely breaking even, the sponsors, the network, because they just need this to stretch as much as it can. And so we know the network executives at ABC, ESPN are hoping that both these series, both in the NBA and the NHL, can go to 7 games. I don't think the Knicks are up 2-0 as of this recording. I see people in New York City waving brooms already. So for all I know, but they took the brooms out in the first game. So, and look, because the Knicks had basically swept, they lost 1 game in the whole playoffs so far. So a sweep can be possible. And look, when your team is going to do the sweeping, it's fun, but it's not fun really. Like you want to see a back and forth. And same thing with the Stanley Cup Final. Like so far, the Stanley Cup Final has been more exciting because of the back and forth nature. The NBA one has been exciting for me because it's New York and they're up 2-0, and it's like, oh, they can win this thing for the first time in 53 years. It's amazing. But if I was a neutral, I'd be like, oh, really? Like, what happened to Wemby? Can't score more baskets. He can't score at the buzzer. Or what's up with him? And look, I should point out the game 2, the Knicks won by 1 point, and Wemby missed the shot at the end, right? So
yeah, but they won by 10 points in the first game.
Yeah, but at one point the Spurs were up like 14. So it is exciting. You want that back and forth, and in basketball you get it in more big waves because there's so much scoring goes on. You have to watch it it's like a pendulum. You got to watch, runs. In hockey, it's obviously goals don't come as nearly as often, so they really matter. And so that's a very long way of saying that, yeah, the networks want this to go as far as it can. I think most fans want that too, because most fans are neutral. They just pick a side and they enjoy it. But I have to say, this final of the Stanley Cup has been very exciting. Maybe the most exciting since, I guess, 2 years ago when we saw the Oilers lose. That went to 7 games. And I was in. I remember that series very well because I was in Chantilly for the show there, and everyone was talking about the Stanley Cup Final. It was like, oh, they're gonna go to 7 games. Gonna make David finally do it because obviously the hobby cares about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that had other implications. This one doesn't have hobby implications, I think, as much as we try to force that. It's just interesting to see which franchise can win this thing, and we'll see. So far, I've been very entertained, and I'm super excited about it. I'm happy.
I have been too. And folks who've been listening, drop a comment. Let us know what you think of the series so far and which way you think it's going to go. But Clemente, any last thoughts before we wrap this one up?
No, I'm glad we got this one in, and we'll be busy all next week watching and hopefully recapping this thing soon. So
yeah, I agree. It's fun to slip one in kind of a little ahead of the game, but that's okay. We had the time to do it, and there was the break in the NHL and NBA schedule, and so just all the stars aligned. So yeah, this was a good time to just.
It's nice when it works out that way.
Okay, well, thank you for listening to the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. As always, if you've enjoyed the show, please be sure to like and subscribe. If you'd like to sponsor this podcast, you could do so by going to shop.puckjunk.com and buying a t-shirt. And if you like to read, you can check out the newsletter at puckjunk.com/newsletter. And until next time, collect what you like.